Hey guys, welcome back to Dizzle in Motion. It's your boy Mike again here, and we got a pretty good one today. I want to discuss the Cybertruck explosion in front of the Trump Hotel here in Las Vegas, and unfortunately, the Special Forces soldier that lost his life. There's a lot of controversy around this, a lot of conspiracy theory, and I just wanted to give my 2 cents on some thoughts and ideas and some facts and that directly conflict. He wrote a couple of letters. He wrote a manifesto. It's being poured over. A lot of, Sean Ryan's show and people have reported it. And I feel like there's a lot of errors, omissions, or just factually incorrect stuff. So I kind of want to bring you down that field of logic for those of you who are not familiar with military, not familiar with, drones or whatever else. And let me kind of take you on a journey that explains this, and I hope it makes sense to you. And I don't have an agenda to this. I just keep getting asked about it. So here's my take on it. So let's start out basically the summary for anybody that's living under a rock, or if you may have gotten some of the details wrong. Special Forces Green Beret guy kind of lost his shit, and he rents a Cybertruck in Colorado, drives it to Las Vegas, but not in a direct route. We'll go through that in a minute. And throughout the way, he's sending letters and emails to podcasters and possibly police and other people, basically warning of these massive cover-ups and conspiracies that he's so concerned about, and on his route explaining how he doesn't want to be exposed and he's being followed, and et cetera, et cetera. So let's get into this stuff. The letters themselves read almost in direct conflict to the manifesto email that Sean Ryan posted, and that's only because he mentions a few things that don't quite add up. He mentions being chased by Homeland Security and the FBI, and then says that he's heading to Mexico, but they're not going to let him into Mexico. Well, we know he never went to Mexico or even attempted to go to Mexico, so that's in direct conflict with how this ends. I can also assure you that if you are a direct threat and Homeland or FBI knows about it, they're coming to get you. And he alluded to, oh, I got this massive vehicle-borne IED, I've got guns, they're not going to, I don't know if he's inferring they're not going to take him alive, but basically like they would be afraid. No, they would send a TAC team, they would box you in, and they would take your ass out, like in a heartbeat. Vehicle-borne IEDs, no one would ever live that down, and you're not going to keep that quiet. So that right away, I'm throwing that out the window. So let's start at the top of this manifesto stuff, and obviously the stuff that's got like the UAP community and a bunch of buzz going on. Now, if you guys remember in the last month, what was like the highlight? I just made a video on it. The highlight of all the news that dominated the news was the drone sightings on the East Coast, right? And if you remember, there was alluding to, oh, they're Iranian or Chinese subs and they're Iranian or Chinese drones. Well, if you guys didn't see my last video, after this video, go watch it. It'll make more sense to you. I kind of broke down my theories on that. And more or less was saying, I think it's one of our operations. There's like a 1% chance Chinese stuff is involved because, yeah, they do have stuff. But what this manifesto actually talks about is that there's anti-gravity drones, more or less, right? Science fiction, sci-fi type stuff. So obviously that's going to get a big headline. It's going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. But it kind of falls apart just in a couple of basics. So for starters, I believe he was a master sergeant, Special Forces. And so, yes, I know, I've known SEALs, Rangers, Delta, like everything. And I've worked projects and stuff in the past myself, just, being in the military, working contracts, whatever. And one thing I know is that you don't just get to learn about secret programs, special access programs, call them SAPs, you may have heard. That's not how that works. It's not like, oh, you have a top secret clearance, so you could just know whatever you want to know. Just pull it up in the computer. That's not how it works. So the first thing that stood out to me is let's say this was real, before I even get into how I don't think it's real, but let's say hypothetically it is real. What concern if he's not in on that project, which, by the way, he never mentions his participation in this project. He simply states that he has knowledge of its existence. And then goes on with some pretty heavy specifics, that there's these Chinese drones on the East Coast. They can park them over the White House. They have, this amazing capability of anti-gravity. And then, but we have them also. And this is the new future World War III potential. Okay, so first of all, it's very convenient that that's a buzzword lately. Chinese drones. He mentions the balloons that overflew last year or 2 years ago, whenever it was. And those are relevant things, and they are a threat, and it's a real thing for sure. However, couple little holes in this, right? First of all, why only the East Coast? Just the East Coast, that's it? Okay. And if they're launching from subs, I think China has like 3 to 5 actual nuclear subs that are top tier that could even pull a mission like that off. So they're going to utilize those assets. They'll launch, expose their submarines off the East Coast, show off their best technology as a show of force, only in one, New Jersey, DC area. Highly unlikely. He also mentions that they have unlimited payloads. Well, here's the thing. Okay, if you got anti-gravity, I can see weight not being an issue, but volume and dimensions are. So an unlimited payload, like you're not going to load a Moab into a 6 or 10 foot drone, right? You're not going to put 50,000 pounds of bombs in there. So even if it weighs nothing, the volume of that stuff means that they can't have unlimited payloads. So that's in direct conflict automatically to itself. Then he mentions, I think he dropped a pin of a location in Nevada and says this is like the command center where this is all going down. Well, my sources tell me that's not true. So I can say with 100% certainty that that part of the story is not true. We have in doubt what he's talking about, the capability of these drones. And then logically, it doesn't make sense because he wouldn't have access to this information anyways. The president of the United States sometimes doesn't know about some of the assets we have. And that's not done in like a deliberate way. It's kind of like there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's cool, R&D wise, and until we need it, only the people that are working on it need to know about it. That's how that works, right? And that's the whole point of having compartmentalized information. So in general, that part of the story, I'm just going to say BS. I mean, in addition to that, really, if you think about it, why is Elon Musk, who is likely part of a lot of sensitive information that the government has because of his work with SpaceX and helping out the government in that regard, satellite telemetry, he would be knowing about these things, and you think he'd be spending billions of dollars on chemical rockets if he knew there was some kind of anti-grav technology out there he could buy or procure. And here's another thing about as far as this stuff goes. The best engineers in the world, the smartest people in the room, generally don't work for the Department of Defense. And that's not to slight anybody in the DoD or the government, but the simple fact of the matter is if you're one of the best engineers in the world, if you're one of the best mathematical minds in the world, you go where the paycheck is. And that's going to be defense contractors. That's going to be SpaceX. That's going to be Raytheon. That's going to be Northrop. That's where your bread is going to get buttered, right? And that's also conversely, one of the two reasons is the government typically uses government contractors. One, they're going to have the best talent to design and create things. This has always been the case. But then two, you get kind of that plausible deniability, like separation between what the state's doing, and so they can maintain the privacy and secrecy required to build those projects without having a ton of oversight. And it's usually not active duty military people that are running these projects. Yeah, they'll have to deploy them in combat settings or whatever, but it's usually only at the very highest levels, need to know, stuff like that, not random people. So let's look at something else, the next step that leads to his mind state. So he's originating in Colorado, and if we track the path, he actually went to, we know he ended up in Las Vegas, Nevada, but he actually went through Las Vegas, New Mexico. Yes, there's a Las Vegas, New Mexico, which tells me a few things. One, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, common mistake, you just type in Las Vegas. No, dude. First of all, this is a special forces guy. So he's sharp. He knows how to freaking land navigate, I'm sure. So using a basic GPS and saying Las Vegas NM, I'm not going to buy that's a mistake that's possible unless you're not lucid. I think that goes to show to the mind state that the guy doesn't have his shit together. I think he was losing it there and either typed it in and went there intentionally or unintentionally because he just wasn't all together, or in his mind he's like, I'll throw them off by going to Las Vegas, New Mexico first, and then, but that shows paranoia, that shows, what do they call it? It's basically a psychological break, mental breakdown kind of thing. So that in itself didn't quite jive up. And then he continues on, he takes this long scenic route and evidently sending texts and emails this whole time to, on one hand, It seemed like, I don't know if it's ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, bragging about his truck and how cool it is, while simultaneously sending these very dark emails to people, get to Sean Ryan, get to Joe Rogan, like blow this up, this conspiracy, the end of the world type stuff. And it's just, it's almost like a duality or like a split personality psychosis going on that you can almost read if you just go, wait, he sent this email and this text at the same time. Like, whoa, this dude, tripping. Okay, so let's talk about another claim that he makes. Talks about war crimes in Afghanistan in 2019. Now, I've never been a combat operator. I know a few, but like I personally never did it, but I do know a little bit about the military. I've been deployed before, especially back in like 2004 when things were really hot. I can tell you this much about this. He's claiming in 2019 that there was a basically egregious human rights violation where they attacked, somebody greenlit 125 targets in Afghanistan, civilian targets, and per reading his writing, 125 targets, every aircraft and central command was used, and it was conducted in 6 minutes. Now, anybody that's ever been in any kind of theater knows, first of all, that's going to require, especially now, I mean, 2019, I know it's not now, but like that much later, pretty much combat ops were done. It was like one-offs. You're going to need a general to sign off on that order. I mean, maybe not 15 years ago, but definitely that's massive. Okay. I've also never heard of 120. That sounds like a crazy amount. And you're going to use every aircraft asset you have in theater, and it needs to be done in 6 minutes. I mean, these just sound like bogus. I mean, help me. There's CCT guys out there, combat controllers, guys that call in airstrikes. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, but that just sounds ridiculous to get all that in. Because now, also, let's say it did happen. Okay, let's play the game. It did happen. They blew up 125 buildings and killed dozens or whatever civilians, and then they covered it up. Well, I know the general knows. I know his command staff knows. I know all the lesser involved know. And if you're saying every aircraft central command, that means every pilot knows about it. So you're telling me probably 50 to 100 people know this happened. And every single one of them knows it's an egregious war crime. And they're all just like, yeah, we're just going to, cover this up. Not buying it, bro. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure there's people who watch this video that know more than me in that regard. But everybody I've talked to, they're like, fuck no. Like, that's not a thing. So, and it also just doesn't sound very logical, does it? Okay, so how do we tie this all together? Let's go back through it again. At the end of the day, allegedly he either got divorced or separated from his wife recently. That's a factor, right? Guy clearly has PTSD, or he should. I mean, you would expect it from somebody that's with his combat experience, etc. However, when we look at this, I think all the clues are there that this is a psychotic break. I think this is a guy that lost it. We've seen it before, and I know it sucks because we want to let our heroes rest peacefully. And it may not have been his fault. PTSD may have got the best of him. I know people it's gotten the best of, and it's a tragic thing. And so, unfortunately, a lot of the indications here, though, are in place to show that's probably what happened. The drone claims completely unsubstantiated. He would not have been in a position to have that intel. It doesn't make sense where he's saying they are, why they would only be in that location, why would it lead to the end of the world. He doesn't talk about weaponization. The payload stuff that he mentions doesn't add up with it. Okay, none of that stuff makes sense. He then goes on this erratic ride through the wrong places, or maybe the right places, but in a non-linear way to Las Vegas, while claiming that he's being chased by FBI and Homeland, and they're trying to, quote, abduct him but won't mess with him also because he has the vehicle IED. And it just, none of that lines up. You can ask any law enforcement person if they had direct intel of who somebody was and a threat like that. There's no possible way there's just no way they don't send a TAC team. None. Zero. And he's in a Tesla, which is completely tracked, with his cell phone, which is completely tracked. If they wanted him and they knew about this ahead of time, because that's one of the conspiracies, deep state let this happen, the government let it happen, there's absolutely no way. It doesn't make sense. Okay, and then I'll also mention in the end, motivation, who does it benefit? But So the drone stuff's bogus. The drone location stuff is bogus. The Afghanistan stuff, I don't know 100%, but I'm saying like 99%, just based on logic. Okay, and the people I've spoken to, like 99% that didn't happen. And then let's say the stuff is true. Why kill yourself? Why was the end? And I know he mentions in his manifesto that, taking away the pain for my brothers, that indicates, the PTSD stuff. So, when somebody goes through something traumatic and they already have those feelings, as a lot of veterans do, of conflicting, I made it, they didn't, or whatever. And then you get a new trigger, you lose your wife, you lose a loved one. And those triggers can push people over the edge, and it's tragic. But he's mentioning that all along, kind of narrating that, and the logic doesn't check out. And that's the problem. So, also, another conspiracy theory. Oh, so the deep state killed him and put him in the Tesla and it drove up there and blew up. Okay, first of all, even Elon himself or anybody who works at Tesla will tell you you're not going to put a body. Like, if you go in a Tesla and you fall asleep, try to see if it'll drive you across state lines. Not going to happen, dude. Like, there has to be some inputs, some activity by the driver to prove you're still there and conscious, for that to happen. Also, again, what's the motivation here? Like, if it's conspiracy, sure. Because you could say, there is some question like a signal messenger changed and stuff like that. Okay, so we're bad actors sending this information, these emails, this manifesto, to what end? What's interesting now is this is a tragic event, but what are people calling for? Are people calling for gun control? No, they're not. I barely even see Republicans and Democrats fighting about whose fault it is, which is pretty commonplace for any major event. So what would be the benefit outcome of this? Just to make podcasters look bad? To discredit Sean Ryan or anybody else that would have run with the story? Seems like an awful lot of work to kill somebody and do all these hoops just to discredit, podcasters or YouTubers. I'm not sure I buy onto that. I think, unfortunately, the saddest answer is the correct one here. I think the guy lost it and he was at the end of his rope, and it's unfortunate. So anyways, that's my video for today. Leave your comments. I'm sure there's still going to be conspiracy people saying you don't know what you're talking about, and that's fine. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on this, make you guys think logically about some of the things you may not have been aware of, and continue the conversation in a positive way, because I think there's just way too much conspiracy stuff right now on the internet. So thanks for watching the video. Make sure you go check out that drone video if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And that was kind of a prelude into this, I know, inadvertently. But I'll check you guys out on the next one. Thanks for watching.